While we were having lunch, my son slid a note across the table. It said, "Turn off your phone." Don't ask why I froze, staring at him in shock. Before I could even react, a strange voice came out of my phone speaker without any call. The room fell silent. Everyone turned and looked straight at me. If you want to hear how this story unfolds, make sure to subscribe and comment below where you're watching from. My name is Franklin Hayes. I am 68 years old, a retired school teacher who has always believed in living a quiet and simple life. My days are usually filled with reading old books, gardening, and enjoying meals with my family. Sundays are special to me, because that is when my son Ethan and my late wife's goddaughter Emily often come over for lunch. Those afternoons are what I look forward to all week. On this particular Sunday, the house smelled of roasted chicken and warm bread. The sunlight spilled across the table, and everything felt safe and ordinary. Ethan, who works in cybersecurity, kept checking his watch between bites of food. Emily sat beside me, sharing a funny story from her office about a coworker who had spilled coffee all over the printer. We laughed together, and for a while, it felt like nothing in the world could disturb us. I teased Ethan for being glued to his phone, the way fathers often do. "Ethan, you're always looking at that screen. Can't you enjoy your food first?" I asked with a smile. He only shook his head and replied, "One day, Dad, you'll thank me for being careful." Emily laughed and nudged him, saying he worried too much. In that moment, I felt grateful. At my age, having both of them sitting at my table was a blessing. I thought about how my wife, God rest her soul, would have loved to see these moments. But I also noticed a kind of tension in Ethan's eyes that I couldn't explain. Little did I know, that quiet Sunday lunch was about to turn into one of the most terrifying moments of my life. The note in my hand felt heavier than paper should. "Turn off your phone." Don't ask why my son Ethan had written those words, and the look in his eyes told me this was no joke. For a moment, I thought about ignoring it, brushing it off as one of his cybersecurity fears. But then, I noticed his hand slightly trembling as he pushed the note toward me. That was not like him. Ethan was the calm one, the one who always told me to relax, that he would handle things. If he was shaken, then something was very wrong. Before I could reach for the phone, a sound pierced the quiet air. It wasn't a ringtone, it wasn't a notification, it was a voice. Low, distorted, and chilling. It came straight out of the speaker, even though the phone screen was black. The voice said my name, slowly, as if tasting it. "Franklin." The fork slipped from Emily's hand and clattered against her plate. Her face turned pale as she leaned back, whispering, "Who was that?" I could not answer. My throat felt dry. I picked up the phone, but there was no call, no sign of anything unusual. Still, the voice continued, faint and crackling, as if someone were sitting just on the other side of the device. Ethan shot up from his chair and grabbed the phone. "Dad, don't touch it," he said sharply, pressing buttons to shut it down. But even as he held the power button, the screen stayed dark, and the voice whispered again, clearer this time. "She doesn't belong there. She will never make it home." Emily gasped and looked at me with wide eyes. I reached out and placed my hand over hers. She was shaking, and for a brief second, she looked like a frightened child, not the confident young woman I had watched grow up. I felt a wave of anger rising in me. Whoever this was, whatever game they were playing, they had just dragged Emily into it. Ethan finally slammed the phone face down on the table. The sound echoed through the room, but the voice stopped. We sat in silence, staring at one another, as though afraid to even breathe. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. I broke the silence first. "Ethan, what is going on? What do you know?" My voice was sharper than I intended, but fear had taken over me. He looked at me, then at Emily. His face was tense, his jaw tight. "Dad, I think someone has been tracking you. Maybe your phone is compromised." This wasn't a prank. That voice knew your name. It knew about Emily. Emily shook her head, tears brimming in her eyes. "Why me? What does this have to do with me?" I pulled her closer. "Your family. That's all that matters. We'll figure this out." But deep inside, I felt a weight pressing down on me. The words from the voice were like poison in my mind. She will never make it home. What did that mean? Was it a threat? A warning? Ethan began pacing the room. Dad, has anyone been bothering you? Any old students? Old neighbors? People you used to know? I shook my head firmly. No one. My life is boring, Ethan. I read, I garden, I come here and eat with you. That's it. He stopped and stared at me. It doesn't matter. Whoever this is, they've tied it to you. And they've made Emily the target. Emily clutched her hands together tightly. I don't feel safe going home tonight. Not after this. Hearing her say that broke me inside. Emily has been strong and independent, someone who rarely showed fear. Now she was trembling in my kitchen, afraid of a voice that had no face. I made a decision in that moment. You're not going home, I said. You're staying here. No arguments. But Emily shook her head. Franklin, I have work to can't just stay away. Ethan turned to her, his voice low but urgent. Emily, listen to him. Whoever this is, they singled you out. Going home alone is the worst thing you could do. Tears finally spilled down her cheeks. Why would anyone want to hurt me? She whispered. I didn't have an answer. All I knew was that the air in the room had shifted. Our safe Sunday meal was no longer safe. The house no longer felt like a sanctuary. That voice had pierced through our walls, and now it lingered in every corner of the room, even though the phone was silent. I held Emily's hand tighter and looked at my son. If someone is after her, then we won't let it happen. Not while she's with me. Ethan nodded, though his face showed no comfort. The tension between us was like a rope pulled to breaking point. We knew the situation was just beginning, and as I sat there, staring at the lifeless phone on the table, I could not shake the feeling that the real danger had not yet begun. The rest of the afternoon passed in uneasy silence. The roasted chicken that had smelled so good only an hour earlier now sat cold on our plates, untouched. Emily pushed her food around with her fork, her hands trembling every few minutes. Ethan sat stiff in his chair, watching me like he expected me to collapse at any moment. I pretended to be calm for their sake, but inside I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Helplessness. I had taught classrooms full of unruly kids, faced parents who doubted me, even endured losing my wife to illness. Through all of that, I had remained steady. But this invisible voice from nowhere that dared to threaten my family was unlike anything I had faced before. When the sun began to set, Ethan broke the silence. Dad, we can't just sit here. We need to make a decision. His voice was steady, but I could hear the urgency underneath. Emily looked up quickly. A decision? About what? He leaned forward, lowering his voice as though someone else might be listening. About you. About where you're going tonight. That voice mentioned you by name. It's not safe for you to go home. Emily shook her head, her face pale but determined. I can't just stay here forever. I have work tomorrow, and my things are at my apartment. I'll be fine. Maybe it was just some weird signal, or maybe someone hacked the phone. I don't want to overreact. Her words made me angry, not at her, but at the situation. The fact that she even had to explain herself, to defend her normal life against some faceless threat, made my blood boil. I slammed my hand lightly on the table. Emily, you are not going home alone tonight. I won't allow it. She looked at me, startled. I softened my tone. You're like a daughter to me. I promised your godmother, my wife, that I'd always look after you. If someone thinks they can scare you out of your own life, they'll have to go through me first. Her eyes filled with tears, and she looked away, wiping them quickly. Ethan placed his hands flat on the table. Dad's right. You can't go back alone, but if you're set on returning, then we're coming with you. I turned to Ethan sharply. You mean me and you, both of us? He nodded. Yes. If she insists on going back, then we'll make sure she's not walking into something dangerous. Emily hesitated, biting her lip. I don't want to drag you both into this. What if this is bigger than we think? What if it's dangerous? Ethan leaned closer to her. Emily, you already are in danger. That voice singled you out. If we do nothing, that's when something bad happens. We need to face it head on. I could see the fear in her eyes, but also the trust. She looked at me and whispered, if you really think it's best, then okay, but I don't want to be alone in that apartment tonight. Her words sealed it. The decision was made. We began preparing as the sky outside darkened into evening. Ethan pulled out his laptop and started typing furiously, trying to trace if there had been any signal or hacks linked to my phone. I went to the closet and pulled out my old flashlight, the one I used to carry during camping trips with my students. My hands shook as I tapped, but it worked. I told myself it was silly to be this nervous. I was a grown man, nearly 70, preparing for a trip across a war. Yet, in my heart, it felt exactly like that. Emily sat on, hugging a pillow to her chest, watching us move. I noticed how small she looked, how vulnerable. She wasn't the lively young woman laughing at lunch anymore. She was someone marked, targeted by something we couldn't yet understand. Before we left, I knelt beside her, placed my hand gently on hers. Emily, no matter what happens, you're not alone. You have me, and you have Ethan. That voice wanted us afraid, but I won't give it that victory. She nodded, her lips trembling. Thank you, Franklin. I don't know what I'd do without you both. As we stepped out into the night air, I felt the weight of responsibility settle on my shoulders. For years, I had thought my role in life was behind me, that my days of protecting anyone were over. But now, walking beside Emily and Ethan, I knew my choices mattered again. The voice had challenged, and I had chosen to act. We climbed into the car, the three of us, united but nervous. As the engine started, I looked into the rearview mirror. Emily's face was pale in the faint glow of the dashboard, and Ethan's jaw was tight. For the first time, I realized this wasn't just about Emily's safety, it was about mine too. Whoever had spoken through that phone wasn't finished. They were waiting for us, and as I turned onto the dark road that led to Emily's apartment, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were heading straight into the trap they had set. But I was ready. Whatever was waiting for us, I would face it, because that's what a father does for his family. The drive to Emily's apartment was quieter than I had expected. The streets of our small were mostly empty, lit only by the occasional flickering streetlight. The steady hum of the engine filled the silence as we moved forward, each of us lost in thought. Emily sat in the back seat, her hands folded tightly in her lap. I could see her reflection in the rearview mirror, her lips pressed into a thin line, her eyes darting toward the dark windows outside, as though someone might be watching. Ethan sat beside me in the passenger seat, his phone in his hand, refreshing data and checking for signals like his life depended on it. Halfway there, I broke the silence. Emily, you're sure you locked your door before leaving? Yes, she whispered. I always do, but now I can't stop wondering if someone's been inside. Her words sent a cold chill through me. I pressed my foot on the gas just a little harder. When we finally pulled up in front of her apartment building, my stomach sank. Something was wrong. The front door of her unit, visible from the street, stood slightly ajar. The faintest strip of darkness showed between the frame and the wood. Ethan noticed it too. Dad, he said sharply, gripping my arm. Look. Emily leaned forward, her voice cracking. No, I locked it. I know I did. I turned the engine off, but the car stayed silent for a moment. None of us moved. Then, from the back seat, Emily whispered, I don't want to go in there. I looked at her, and then at my son. You're not going in alone. We'll go together. Ethan, the flashlight in his bag, me a small, stay behind instructed. For once, his training in cyber seemed distant, all about codes. But to his protects were something. The approach air seemed, the silence deep. My heart pest. I pushed the door slowly. It creaked open. It felt too. The living room inside was dark, but the smell immediate. It wasn't the familiar scent. Emily's lavender was damp, metallic, unsettled. My flashlight cut across the room. What I saw made me stop. Her couch cushions were slashed, white stuffing spilling. Her books were scattered and broken. But it was the photo on the wall that froze me. It was a framed picture, taken years ago. It was still. The glass was shattered, and the photo its separate wife. My stomach twisted. Whoever had done this just breaking in. They were sending a message. Behind me, Emily gasped. Why would they do this? Ethan moved quickly, scanning the room with his flashlight. Dad, stay close. Someone's been here, and maybe still in. We moved deeper inside. Every step on the broken glass and torn papers echoed through the room. Emily stayed between us, clutching my arm tightly. Then, without warning, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I froze. Slowly, I pulled it out. The screen was dark, but the speaker crackled to life. The same voice as before filled the air, louder now, sharper. You shouldn't have come, Emily whimpered, pulling closer to me. Ethan snatched the phone and threw it onto the floor, but the voice kept coming as if the walls themselves were speaking. She doesn't belong here. You cannot protect her. Rage rose in me. I shouted into the empty room. Who are you? What do you want from her? Silence followed, thick and heavy. Then, the voice spoke again, slower this time, each word drawn out. She will pay for what you owe. The words cut through me like a knife. What I owed? I tried to think back, desperate for meaning. I was a teacher my whole life. Had I wronged someone that badly? Could an old enemy really come back after all these years to haunt me through Emily? Ethan took my arm. Dad, we need to get out. This isn't safe. But I shook my head. No. If we run now, they'll only keep coming. This is about me, not her. Emily pulled at me. Franklin, please. I just want to go. Please, let's leave. I looked at her, at the fear in her face, and my decision became clear. I wasn't leaving her behind. Not now. Not ever. We're going to the police, I said firmly. Tonight. They need to see this. Ethan nodded quickly. Good. That's the only way we'll get ahead of this. But just as we turned toward the door, the phone on the floor crackled one last time. The voice whispered, so faint it was almost drowned by the sound of our footsteps. Too late, Emily screamed, and for a split second, I thought someone was in the room with us. Ethan swung his flashlight wildly, searching every corner. Nothing, just shadows, broken furniture, and that heavy silence pressing down again. We rushed out into the night air, our breaths coming fast, our hearts pounding. I looked back at the apartment door hanging open, and I knew this was only the beginning. Whoever had done this wasn't finished. The game they were playing had just started, and they had made it very clear. Emily was the piece they wanted to move. We stood outside Emily's apartment, breathing in the cold night air, as though it might wash away what we had just seen. My hands were still shaking, and I could feel Emily's grip on my arm, tight and desperate. Ethan kept scanning the parking lot, his flashlight moving from car to car, certain someone might still be out there watching us. The broken glass and torn photo inside her home haunted me, but it was the voice on the phone that echoed loudest in my head. She will pay for what you owe. I drove us straight to the police station. The silence in the car was heavy. Emily pressed her face against the window, tears sliding down her cheeks, while Ethan tapped furiously on his phone, trying to capture every detail of the strange signal he had picked up earlier. I kept my eyes on the road, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. I felt older than I had in years, not just in body, but in spirit. Whoever was behind this had reached into our lives, taken our peace, and crushed it without even showing their face. At the station, the officers listened carefully, but exchanged uncertain glances. A ransacked apartment, a torn photo, and a strange voice through a phone speaker. It sounded unbelievable when spoken aloud. Still, they promised to investigate. They took our statements, collected the phone, and assured Emily they would send a patrol to keep an eye on her building. I wanted to believe their words, but deep down, I knew this was more than just a break-in or a prank. This was personal. When we returned to my house later that night, Emily insisted on staying with me. She didn't want to step foot back into her apartment until the police had cleared it. I made up the guest room for her, tucking in fresh sheets and placing a small lamp by the bed. She stood in the doorway, her face pale and her eyes hollow. "Thank you," she whispered. "I don't feel safe anywhere else right now." I placed my hand gently on her shoulder. "You're safe here. I promise you that Ethan stayed as well, not willing to leave either of us alone." We sat at the kitchen table long past midnight, the three of us, drinking coffee that had gone cold. For a long time, no one spoke. Finally, Ethan broke the silence. "Dad, when that voice said you owed something, what did it mean? Is there anything from your past, anything at all, that might explain this?" I thought hard. I went back over the years in my mind, searching for some forgotten conflict or mistake. I had been strict with my students, yes, but always fair. I had lived an ordinary life, yet the words clung to me. "What you owe." It was as if some shadow from long ago had finally come to collect. "I don't know," I admitted, "but whoever this is, they've chosen Emily to get to me, and that makes it my responsibility to stop them." Emily shook her head, tears streaming again. "Why me? I didn't do anything. I don't even know who could hate me like this." I reached across the table, held her hands. "Because you're family to me. That's enough for them. They want to hurt me, but I won't let them." The rest of the night passed slowly. Every creak of the house made us jump. Ethan barely slept, keeping his laptop open and tracing signals, determined to find some digital trail. Emily finally drifted off in the guest room, though her restlessness told me her dreams were no kinder than her waking hours. I sat in my chair until dawn, staring at the silent phone on the table. I half expected it to light up on its own again. By morning, the sunlight looked different than usual. It didn't bring comfort. It felt sharp, exposing, as though we were now living in a world where even the daylight couldn't protect us. The police called to say they had secured Emily's apartment, but found no fingerprints, no clear signs of forced entry, and no device that could have made the voice come through the phone. That news chilled me more than anything. Whoever this was, they were clever. They had left no trace, only fear. Ethan looked at me with tired eyes. We can't just wait for them to come back. We have to stay ahead of this. I nodded, feeling a weight settle on my shoulders, but also a spark of determination. Then that's what we'll do. If they want to fight, they've got one. I won't back down. Emily came into the room, still pale, but standing straighter. I'll try not to be afraid, she said softly. If you're with me, I can face it. Her words gave me strength. I realized that age didn't take away my purpose. In fact, it gave me something more powerful, the will to protect the people I love, no matter the cost. Whoever was behind that voice had made one mistake. They underestimated me. That day, I made a vow. I would not let fear rule my home. I would not let Emily live under the shadow of some faceless threat, and I would not let my son carry this burden alone. We were a family, bound not by blood alone, but by love and loyalty, and no voice on a phone could take that from us. As I looked at Emily and Ethan, I felt the fear inside me harden into resolve. The battle wasn't over, but I knew one thing for certain. We were ready to fight back. If this ending gave you chills, subscribe to my channel for more powerful stories, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from.